Well, Adam, it's so great to have you here for a chat today. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
It's a unique situation, right? Like, very rarely do you get the opportunity to talk politics, to talk power, to talk life with the curtains drawn back, pick over all the issues, and to do it in a way that, I think for me, you and I have been on this journey for a long time together, and I really wanted to have this conversation with you about power, because everyone's talking about it. It's what our lives are made of. It's what runs the world, except that there's different types of power, and there's different people who have power, and you've moved from one bucket to another, and I'm really keen to get stuck in and just let's have a conversation about what that means for people, what that means for the future of the planet.
Yep, I think it's the conversation to be having at the moment, because one of the things that we certainly feel at ACF, where I am now, is this real sense of we need to win faster. Like the climate crisis is getting worse, nature crisis is getting worse. Some are calling it a poly crisis. These mass cost of living pressures, like just this general sense of anxiety and stress that people are under, and that we need to find a way of pushing back and building the kind of power to make sure that everyone has a good life. But there's a good life for all, for plants, for animals, for people.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be too much to ask, given the resources that we've got and the smarts we've got. But it turns out, like at the moment, it feels a bit like it's going the other way, and I think that is a question of power. Yeah,
it is, isn't it? And people, you would remember this from being, the leader of the Greens, and I'm sure you're still recognisable. So I'm sure people still come up to you on the street, or bail you up in the supermarket, and so often, increasingly for me, people are saying, it just feels all this shit's going on all at the same time. It's overwhelming. And how do they deal with that? Whose fault is it? Because there's some bad things going on, and how do we fix it? One of the things you've got to do is identify who's standing in the way of it being fixed, who's benefiting from the problem as it is. When you've got the climate crisis and environment, you've got cost of living, you've got the right of politics rebranding itself in this extraordinary way to take power back or to exert more power, it does feel really overwhelming. So, I think we kind of have to break some of that up so that it's a bit more manageable.
Yeah.
Like bite size, but understand it's all connected.
Yeah, and I think the starting point for that is accepting that these pressures are really real.
They are real.
And to say, it's not you, it's them. Where's the camera? It's not you, it's them. What do I mean by that? Back in the 1980s, it used to cost 3 times the average income to buy a house. Now it costs between 8 and 10, sometimes even more, depending on where you are. There wasn't the threat that climate change might reach dangerous tipping points, or that the koala might go extinct in Australia.
Or that your house could burn down because of the bushfires that are fueled by climate, right?
Or that you'd be living in the inner city and you couldn't get insurance, right? Because there's a risk of floods now because it's fueled by coal and gas fueling the climate crisis. Or that you'd spend a big chunk of your life paying off a debt because you went to university, or that you'd manage to get a job or potentially have to work 2 or 3 jobs and be working a full-time week and still not have enough to pay the rent and meet all the costs of life. So these things, there's been movement throughout history, but in Australia not that long ago it was not like that. Right? It was not like that. And there was this idea of sort of a settlement underpinning Australia, like settlement in the sense of not in the sense of white settlement, but in the sense of an agreement that you'd get big corporations to pay their tax. If you earned a lot of money, you'd pay a bit more tax than someone who didn't earn money. And that money would go towards funding things so that people could have a good life, right?
Have the basics of a good life.
Social compact, let's call it that.
Yeah.
And that's just come under enormous threat at the same time. And the big corporations, we live in an era now where big corporations have too much power. Like the balance has really, really changed. So the social compact's under threat. Big corporations have got a lot more power than they had before. And people feel that in terms of pressure, risk, anxiety. Like it's ever present.
Yeah.
And there's, in all of that, there's actually, this is why I say it's not you, it's them. Firstly, understand it wasn't always like that. And secondly, part of what is happening at the moment is a kind of a push often from governments, from powers that be, to kind of say it's all your fault.
Yeah.
Like you've got to fix it so that you can afford a house.
Yes.
You've got to find a way of balancing having a kid and having enough income and finding a place to live. And it's like a lot of these things. The
old lifter or leaner.
All of that stuff. And it's like, and when that pressure gets put onto people, like some people crack, some people just, as I often sometimes do, you just disappear into your phone, want to scroll through it till the end and see if it's got the answer there. Yeah. Like these are actually just very reasonable responses to a really difficult time.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because I think I was just reflecting as you were saying about, 20, 30 years ago, feeling as though there was an understanding. Government had a role, look after people, offer services, you pay your taxes, that funds those things. Corporations, yes, there's a role for business and industry, but it's within these guidelines, so it's actually delivering for the overall society we live in. That's kind of nostalgia. And Pauline Hanson's using nostalgia too. And there's this kind of idea that, everything would be great if we went back to when there was no immigration. I mean, when the fuck was that? It doesn't exist. And she's kind of painting this picture around, life would be so much better if we closed the doors. And not just Pauline, let me be clear. It's like, it's the hard right is kind of wanting to go back to this. I guess we say, this 1950s view of the world. The 1950s has kind of become this, catch-all phrase for a conservative utopia. And it just didn't actually exist, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's like that classic reel of the guy who's going around at one of the Trump rallies asking everyone, so when was America great? Tell me what year. Yeah. What year was America great? And no one can actually name it, unless you're talking about a time when slavery was in existence or whatever. It's like people, it's very difficult. But I think there's a difference between nostalgia and history, and understanding that one of the things I think we're seeing at the moment is that back in the 70s, back in the 80s, there were some big changes to that social compact that were driven. People remember Reagan, people remember Thatcher, really pushing through some big economic changes that kind of tore up a lot of that safety net.
Yes.
Pushed everyday people further into debt.
Yes.
In Australia, made changes that saw house prices start to rise from the 90s onwards. All of those things happened. And what we find often in these moments is that the very same forces that cause all that dislocation and disaffection then come back and try and profit from it. Yes. And isn't it true that even when those moments are happening, and you see this with vested interests, their secret weapon is, yes, there's going to be some pain, but it's all going to be worth it. There's the trade-off here is going to be good for you. Yeah. When really what they mean is, it's good for us. It's good for our profits. It's good for our shareholders. No worries if your river's polluted or there's not enough water there to for the little farmer and the massive corporate cotton grower's got everything he needs. Or, I'm thinking about this in the space of AI at the moment. We're being told that we need this technology, and so we've got to suck up having these huge, massive data centres that are going to take all of our energy and take all of our water. But you'll like it because you'll be able to, find something faster and easier on the internet. Yeah, and it's like, is it going to mean that you'd be able to work fewer hours for the same pay? No, probably not, because any profits that come out of those productivity gains are going to go straight up the top. And these are pretty significant problems that we're dealing with. And I think one of the things that I learned from my 15 years in Parliament is that in this world where like big corporations have too much power,
they have a shitload, don't they?
You can be there in the People's Parliament, negotiating decisions, be on the verge of, you might remember what I'm talking about here, be on the verge of like getting an agreement that's really good, that's going to deliver, and bang, in come the corporations, they pick up the phone, they say to the government, don't you dare do that. Bang, all of a sudden, things like that's the kind of power that they wield. And then you have people looking at Parliament going, well, actually you are making decisions not in the public interest but for vested interests.
Yes.
Like the gas export tax is another example of that. And I think people are increasingly seeing that, and they've had enough, and in many respects rightly so. The thing is, what we're seeing at the moment a lot of proposals for what I think is fake change. Like
fake
change. Like what is being offered from the hard right is actually not to rip up the status quo, it's to turbocharge it, right? It's to say all the things that are currently bad, this inequality that we're experiencing, that's what they point to.
It's phony.
But then they say, but when you say, well, what will you actually do? You see this in the US at the moment. You see more wars, you see higher inflation, you see it harder to get by. Why? Because it's all about giving those big corporations that are sitting behind this all even more power.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and I think that it is. It's fake. It's phony, and I mean, it's just thinking. We've seen Tony Abbott come back into the fray. Phony Tony. Like he's tried it once before. He's trying it again. He's this whole kind of cuddling up of the right to rebrand themselves as the solution to the problems that they fucking created. Like that it is their mates, it is their laws, it's their system that they have actually created.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I learned in my time in Parliament is that when you have this world where the big corporations have an enormous amount of power and they can pick up the phone and get governments to make decisions like in the corporate interest rather than in the vested interests.
Can we can we give the example of that? Because for people listening, like they hear politicians or, activists say this, but you've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there. We've seen this. Like, let's draw back the curtain a minute. Like, when you say pick up the phone, you actually literally mean pick up the phone.
Literally. And one of the things that when I was in Parliament we tried to get done was changes to our nature laws to better protect nature. You were very heavily involved in that as well. And there was negotiations that were taking place about how those laws might be changed. And was it going to be perfect? No. Was it going to get us somewhere better than where we were? Yes. And just before there was the chance to even come in and vote on it, like what you read the front page of the West Australian, you've got the West Australian Premier saying, I and the resource corporations have just stopped this law from ever happening. Like, we will make sure there are no changes to protect nature. And they're boasting about it. Right? They're boasting about it in public. And it's like, this is, again, just reading straight from the paper. I picked up the phone and got on the phone and bang, made sure it never happened again.
Called the Prime Minister.
So, like, these guys are boasting about it in the paper. And so... but you see it sort of over many times. Like I still remember, like in the first time I was in Parliament, in the minority Parliament, where we were working together cooperatively with independents and with the government to get good laws passed. And then they started reneging on some of the deals. And I still remember at one point, one big sort of power broker came down, sit next to me and said, look, this was about the gambling law reform, and said, look, we may... I don't know. Yes, I'm sure that there was a deal that was signed that said we'd act on gambling, but I've got half a dozen people in seats that where there's pokies, and they're threatening to run a campaign against them, and I'm not going to allow that to happen, so we can't go ahead with the promise.
So the gambling industry and the pokey industry, really use their power to threaten the electoral success of individual sitting MPs. And so they get together and go, well, we can't lose our seats, so we're going to have to shut up.
That's right. And so, and this is, again, like we started talking about power and how it works. And I think one of the things that I learned very clearly is that governments, and I'm not making a partisan political point here, this is just sort of having seen governments of different stripes over that period of time there, before they make a decision, they kind of look out the window, right? Whether it's metaphorically, really, they say, well, if I do this, what's going to be the reaction? Who's going to back me? Who's going to whack me? Right?
Who's going to back me? Who's going to whack me?
If I do this, like every now and then, you get a bold government that says, I'm going to do this for principle, no matter what.
And I'll take the whacking.
And I'll take the whacking because it's the right thing to do. But by and large, they're just reactive, right? They're reactive, and they say, what's going to be the risk if I do it? And what we've got at the moment is a situation where, on the one hand, some very powerful big corporations, and now they've got a bunch of people pushing their fake change agenda on their side as well, breathing down the government's neck. And then on the other hand, on the other side, we've got a whole lot of people who want to see something done for nature, want to see something done for climate, want to see more equality in Australia, but don't know how to make their power felt.
Yes.
And so governments go, oh, well, I'll listen to those guys because
they've got it sorted out.
I don't want them to run a $25 million advertising campaign like the mining industry did after the mining tax a couple of decades ago. And I lose my seat and we lose the government, etc. So they give in. And part of what we've got to do is, like, the one thing that we've got that they haven't got is people power, and there's more of us than there are of them, right, on this side. And what we've got to do is get back to being more powerful, working out how we can use our voice and working out how we can have the influence for nature and climate. And that's what I'm interested in at the moment is, like, how do we pull on the other end of the rope?
Yeah.
So it isn't just those big, powerful vested interests who are picking up the phone and the last one who's in the decision makers' ears.
It's like you're in the swimming. You're at the Olympic swimming, and there's the team, the relay team, who have all trained really hard, and they're working. They've got, we're all backing them, and then there's the team who've taken all the enhancing drugs. They're making it easy. It's an easy way for them. They got the money, they got the backing, they've got the access straight through the door. But no one actually wants to back the cheat, do they?
Well,
no one actually wants to back the cheat. They want to back the people.
And I mean, I don't know if tug of war is an Olympic sport. It's probably not yet. But I feel like you've got the corporations and their fake change backers on one side, and big, powerful vested interests pulling on one end of the rope. And then you've got the people on the other. And at the moment, the government's just like looking that way, and any slight movement that way, they go, oh, well, I don't want to go because you might pull it even further. And we've got to be on the other end saying, no. It's like, actually, we're going to hold you to account. We want you to make decisions in the public interest, not for vested interests.
Yeah. Do you think in that... in order to really build the people power, and I know you've talked about this quite a bit in taking on this new role at ACF as the new CEO, kind of bringing people to building the people power movement. Do you think though that we have to be united to do that? Like, is that because as the old saying goes, the easiest way to defeat your enemies is to divide them?
Yeah, and I think it's worth reminding ourselves, and this is the thing, about the difference between history and fake nostalgia. There was a time in this country when nature determined the course of an election. It was the Franklin Dam campaign in the early 80s, and there were thousands of people from right across the country, not just in Tasmania where the dam was proposed to go ahead.
Yeah, nationwide.
Coming together for big rallies, big events to say, no, don't dam the Franklin. And that movement was so big and powerful, and dare I say it, attractive, that the guy who wanted to be Prime Minister, Bob Hawke, chose to go and stand at a rally with a badge that had a little green triangle on it that said no dams, and said, I promise that if I'm elected, we will stop the damming of the Franklin and override the state government. And they got elected and they passed a law to make it happen. And then, because there's this big, powerful movement happening, not even the High Court would stand in the way of it. And the High Court upheld that law and said, go ahead. And it was just everyday people. This was just everyday people taking to the streets, going and joining together with their colleagues. And to come to your point about United, it's people from all walks of life, right? It was like, wherever you come from, it's like, oh, we want to protect what's great about this country. And so we're going to come and be part of this movement. And I think that's what we need to get back to. And we, as an environment movement, we need to be a movement that is for everyone and is also understands those very real concerns that people are facing about cost of living, etc., and it makes it really clear that actually protecting nature and protecting climate is about making your life better, right? Not asking people to do less, but for them to have more. It's like, why is it that when you go into the supermarket and you see those vegetables, like the vegetables, there's a little sticker on the vegetable saying, oh, this, we can't currently get this one because of, weather events. It's like, that's climate change.
Yeah.
Like, why is a lettuce sometimes costing $4, $5? It's like, it's the climate crisis is pushing up the cost of living. Why can't you get insurance? It's the climate crisis. So I think understanding that Australia's changed, like the composition of Australia's changed, we need a bigger and broader movement. So do we need to be united? I think we all need to come together, but you don't have to be to be part of a movement to want to come and stop destruction of nature. We've got to get away from this, like you've got to tick a box and meet 10 criteria before you're allowed to come to a meeting. It's like, no, this is a movement for everyone.
Everyone. It's got to be inclusive and it's got to be diverse, and the real motivation has to be wanting to fix it.
Yep.
And to leave the world in a better state and leave the community and society in a better state. And
that's why, we're just finishing our very thrilling strategic planning process, about to sign it off. And one of the things that I've fought for is we've got to have the word fun in it, right?
Yes.
And we've got to be fun. And this is really important because we've got to strike this balance between explaining how serious the situation is, and the climate crisis and the extinction crisis are really, really serious, but also not being something people just doom scroll past.
Yes. Can we? Yeah. Let's talk about that for a minute, because you're hearing all over the place, and it's not just in Australia, it's, internationally, where there's this new branding of the hard right. We've seen it in the US. It's old school now with Donald Trump. I mean, Jesus Christ. We've had to live through two of them. Now we've got, this going on in the UK, Europe. There are some green shoots in places where people are, pushing back and saying, hang on a minute, who's the benefit of this? Like, where's the people? We're starting to see that here in Australia. But as this is all unfolding, people are going, climate's dropped off the agenda. It's not, people aren't interested. I guess, in the role you've got now, I mean, that's not an option. That's not an option for climate to drop off the agenda. I mean, whose agenda? Hasn't dropped off Mother Nature's agenda.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting in Melbourne at the moment, in Victoria, down Great Ocean Road, very popular place for people over holidays. People live there the rest of the time as well, obviously, but during holidays, a lot of people come down there, down at Wye River, a place that I've been to a few times. At one point during summer holidays, they were on fire watch. Then within a couple of weeks, cars and caravans were being swept out to sea under and around and over the Wye River Bridge after massive flooding. You might have seen the shots of
those
this.
shots of the cars floating in the bay there.
Within a couple of weeks, they were back on fire watch again.
Wow.
Right? This coal and gas are fueling the climate crisis and are smashing people's lives. Like, this is the reason that in some parts of the country you can't get insurance anymore, or why your insurance premiums are going through the roof. This is driving a lot of the inflation that you're seeing in groceries. Now, I think, and you have this real sense that, here in Melbourne at the moment, it's like, it doesn't feel as cold as it should be, like at this time of the year. And similarly, over summer, it's like, it's another night where it's really hard to put the kids to bed because the temperature's just not dropping. It doesn't matter how much the fans are on, etc. Like, the house is uncomfortable. People are feeling this.
Yeah.
Like, people are knowing it's happening. People know in their gut that something's not right. Problem is, you've now got to worry about how you're going to pay the rent.
Yes.
Or the mortgage as well.
Yes.
Or how, like, the grocery bills and which things are going to drop off. So I don't think it's that people care about climate and environment less. I think these other things have just risen, and now you've got to deal with it all.
You've got to deal with it all.
And so it can,
we come back to our original point that this level of stress and anxiety and kind of overwhelmingness that the system all over the place is breaking down, the environment, the nature's system, the environment system, the economic system that we've been taught has broken down.
And for most of the population, it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. And so we've kind of at this point where there's all those crises going on. And I also think we've got a connection crisis at the moment. We've got people are more disconnected from each other. Like, 1 in 3 people report being lonely, right? 1 in 3 Australians report loneliness. People feel disconnected from nature. There's green shoots on here as well. Like, just we're seeing now more young people than ever are going to concerts by themselves, for example, because it's a place where you might find connection, right? And so I think there's this connection craving. At the same time as there's all these pressures going on, there's this massive desire to be connected with each other and with the things that matter. And this is what I mean about why I talk about fun and talk about connection and talk about, like, balancing, telling the significance of the story, but providing some hope that there's a different way of doing things. Because in this big, like, where everything is sort of unmoored and it's like, where do we go from here? What's happening on one side is that they're just saying hate, fear. Like, yes, you feel like this. And if only we could find the right people to hate, then it'll all be fixed. And that's fake change, but that's that's their thing. And but it's based on fear and division. We've got to argue something different, I think, if we want to protect nature and the climate and ensure a good life for all, which has got to be based around hope. Yeah. And actually showing people that life is better when you're connected with each other. And the things that we're fighting for is, like, we just want you to be able to go to summer holidays without worrying that your car's going to be swept into the ocean or that you're going to be caught up in a fire. Like, so I think there's a way of getting back to talking about those things. Or that
leaving your elderly parents at home while you're on holidays, they're going to be okay because the house isn't going to be too hot.
Right.
More
like during Black Summer.
That heat stress is just
the terrible Black Summer fires. Like, more people died from heat stress during that summer than from the fires themselves.
The elderly, the sick, the young, it exacerbates all of that. Like, it's not just an environment issue, it's a health issue.
Yeah.
Of course, the people who want us to go climate's off the agenda, everyone's, this is all too hard, everyone's too stressed to think about all of this, of course, are the people making the most money from the system.
That's right.
Which, of course, is, the fossil fuel companies and the vested interests. And they want us to vacate the field, don't they?
I mean, and the same corporations that are driving the climate crisis are driving the cost of living crisis as well. And it's why profits are at an all-time high, and the share of economy going to profits compared with what everyday people get. Yeah, of course. But they just realised that it probably wouldn't work if they said that. If they said, "Hey, actually, if you adopt this fake change thing, we're going to get into a situation where we make even more money." So they don't do that.
That's right, exactly. You're talking about hope, and I think that's really important. And again, you just feel it. You feel it in your own conversations. Talking to friends and family. In people feeling like, oh gosh, where do we even start with this? And it's very easy just to get depressed about it all.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, we've had this conversation many times, when shit's going down, whether it's like, something crazy in the parliament or whatever. And, I kind of, I don't know what this says about me, but I kind of thrive when everyone else is like, freaking out. Like I quite like it.
Yeah.
I just go, oh, come on, let's get on with it. I don't want to be depressed. I want to actually do something, and I want to get active, and I want to push some boundaries, and you kind of being energetic actually gives me a sense of purpose.
I think action is a great antidote to despair. And this is something that I think we've kind of got to get a bit better at as well, is saying, actually, there's things that you can do that will make a difference. We've, at ACF, we've got this great program, ACF Investigates, where you can use your mobile phone while you're on the train or the tram waiting to work to basically stop bulldozers, right? You get access to satellite data that we've kind of curated, put in there on your phone, and we're after people who are looking through to work out, comparing before and after pictures, to work out where the bulldozers have gone in where they shouldn't have. Like, ticket.
So get off roadblocks and get onto the ACF app.
Yeah, it's right. Like, literally, you can stop bulldozers on the tram on the way to work.
Yeah, great.
Right, by doing this. And so, like, it's enormously popular, and people are having, like, little parties now as they're sitting around, like, doing the swiping, like, working out. Great. Because, like, this is people power using technology, but this is people power in action. It's actually doing something and making a difference, and it makes you feel good.
It makes you feel good, doesn't it?
And we don't do a good enough job, I think, as a movement of letting people know that, look, down in Tassie not that long ago, they stopped a big tailings dam, mining dam, from going in the middle of a forest, right?
That was
because
a great win.
people power fought and pushed it away, and there's a lot of negativity in mainstream media about when it comes to this. And yes, again, let's be honest about what is actually happening. But at the same time, people power is winning, right? And they're trying to. We can't let them take hope away, right? And but to come back to fun as well, like I think that we had in South Australia, your state.
The great state of South Australia.
Well, not that long ago, the country's first ever battery-powered music festival.
Yay!
Right? And
at Adelaide Uni, yeah.
At Adelaide Uni. And so all off-grid, so powered the battery with renewables, and ran
and
for all
DJ
afternoon,
Adam,
all
I think.
night. Oh, so much fun. Got to DJ. And at 9 o'clock, we had a crowd of a couple of thousand people having a great time, all chanting "No new gas," and then getting back to dancing, right? And it's like one of the techies was telling me that with the battery, like everyone was worried. Oh, is the battery running this festival gonna work? Imagine the stories if it blacks out.
Distance anxiety.
Early on.
Range anxiety.
That's right. Exactly. Whatever the musical equivalent of that is. And early on, the texts were going, oh, it's like we're getting some problems here. The problem was that the lights and everything and the sound equipment was so efficient that it wasn't drawing enough power from the battery. So the battery was tripping, so they had to work around to ensure that it didn't trip.
Wow.
This was Lime Cordial and the Lime Festival guys who wanted to demonstrate that you can have fun without cooking the planet.
Yes.
Like you can do all the good things that make life worth living, right?
Yes.
That we're actually, these are the things that we're actually fighting for in the climate and environment movement. We just want, your grandkids to be able to fish in the same river that you did. Like we want everyone to be able to have a good quality of life and have what they need.
Yet if you listened to, the Murdoch Press's kind of, Fox News, Sky News equivalent, or read their papers, to save the planet, you have to be depressed, and you're not allowed to eat this, and you're not allowed to shop here, and you're not allowed to have fun.
Yeah.
Like that is what
That's the picture they
bullshit.
paint.
This is the bullshit they paint.
And we've got to get out there and tell a different story, which is that no, to be part of the movement, to have a safe climate and protect nature and have a good life for all, it's actually about having fun. Like, and remember back to that
Because we're doing this because we want humanity to be good.
Exactly.
And we want where we live to be good.
And let's remind people about why we're doing it, right? And thinking back to that time of that Franklin Dam campaign where people power protected nature, that movement was so big and powerful and attractive and fun that a prime minister wanted to be part of it. Like someone who wanted to be prime minister.
And not just a prime minister, Bob Hawke,
That's
the
right.
funnest prime minister of all.
Right, there you go. So we've got to get to the point where we've got our own people-powered movement that is so big and powerful and fun that actually, so when the corporations ring up and say, oh, hey, could you stop this, or could you approve a new coal and gas mine? They look out the window and they go, oh, no, actually, there's tens of thousands of people here, and I know that they'll come and whack me at the next election if I don't do the right thing. Yeah,
I love that window analogy, actually, because it's very true. You see it all the time, governments, politicians, leaders going, okay, look out this window, what do I see, what's next door, what do I see, and they make the judgment call. Of course, it's thinking about power and the role different, entities and people play in the various different roles of power. The media are a part of painting those pictures you see in those windows. They really are. And I think one of the things that you experience when you're a leader is the power of the media to say things that just aren't true, to make shit up, to demonise, to, do everything they can. And there's no declaration from some of these players that they're doing it on behalf of your political opponents.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
It's just extraordinary.
Yeah.
It is, again, it's fake.
And so, this is, it's why, people want their news from a trusted source. And, I think it's why you're seeing this massive growth of new media. It's just,
it's partly why we're doing this podcast.
Right.
It's to kind of, it's not in addition, it's not instead of media and news media, but it's in addition so that people have another source of information.
Yep. And so I think that there's some real questions that I think the media should be asking itself about how is it that we're seeing this massive disaffection with the system, and what role has the media played in that? Have they been sort of propping up a system that actually most people are jack of, right? And I think, again, this comes back to my point about in this time of massive pressure and disaffection and disconnection, which way are we going to go? Is it going to be this kind of let's make the problems even worse by pretending we're going to make them better, or is it we're going to use this fragile thing called democracy to actually come together to protect people and the planet? And I think there's a real choice that people are going to have to make, including in the media.
And ultimately, we do need to protect, bolster, and strengthen democracy for this. And again, the corporations and the hard right want us all to believe that democracy doesn't matter, that it's all broken, throw it all out. And it just, that suits people who just want to rule with an iron fist or not be held accountable. And
for someone for me, ACF now, something I've always believed in, campaigning for action on climate. Australia is the third in the top 3 exporters of fossil fuel pollution in the world, right? If you nature doesn't care where things are burnt. If they're dug up and burnt, it has the same effect on climate change. Australia is up there on the podium with Russia and Saudi Arabia, right? Not really a podium that you want to be on, but that's where we are. The top 3 polluters in the world when you take into account how much we send overseas. But we're the only democracy out of those. Like, you try being a climate activist in Russia or Saudi Arabia, right? You don't get too far. And so I share the frustration about us not going ahead fast enough in this country, and still, after the election, there was a lot of hope. And what do we get? We got North West Shelf gas project approved and 3 new coal mines approved, and people are like, what's going on? But I
under what is meant to be one of the most progressive parliaments ever elected.
You could get a lot through this parliament if you wanted to. But like, this is where, again, people power is so important. Like, we've actually got the capacity to push back. And I think we've kind of got an obligation, being the only democracy in the top 3 polluters in the world. Like, we've got an obligation to use that power and that voice that we've got to push them to act. And there's, again, coming to the... yes, it's easy to feel despair, but again, we've got to remember history. Like, we've spoken about the Franklin Dam, but on something a bit more, I guess, smaller scale, but also very important. I grew up spent a chunk of my time in WA after being born in wonderful state of South Australia. Moved over to WA for a while. In WA, the nippers, so the surf life saving kids, right? Yeah. They are sponsored by Woodside, the big gas corporation.
Well, I guess you need to learn to swim if sea level rises.
Well, this is right. Like, these kids who are running out into an ocean that coal and gas are going to acidify and heat up, right? Are then being forced to wear Woodside on there. So they're running out there. Just like,
it's all
my team, the Fremantle Dockers, flag mantle this year. This is going to be the year. But like, why? Like, get off my chest. Follow that account. Like, trying to get Woodside out from the Dockers as well. But so it's like, you look at that and you think, they're everywhere. There's no way we can push back. But I remember growing up watching the Benson and Hedges World Series cricket. Right, cricket. God. When I watched it, like, I don't know if it was a thing for you, but you're a bit younger than me. But like, cricket was sponsored. Your kids watching it, sponsored by a tobacco company.
Yeah.
And then
I remember the Marlboro, footy players and stuff.
Okay, right. Yeah. And so, like, just as like and then a bunch of people came together and said no. These products, like this product, when used as intended, will kill you. So it should not have any place in sport. Should not be something that kids are exposed to. Well, I think coal and gas are the next asbestos and tobacco. And I think just in the same way that now it would be unbelievable to think that you'd allow a tobacco company to sponsor a cricket match for kids. Yeah. Like, we're going to change this as well in our lifetime. Yeah. So let's continue to remind ourselves that things do change for the better when people get behind it. Yeah,
that's a good example. And of course, we're having we haven't resolved this gambling advertising issues. That's something that we've been trying to do since it's the current version, right? Yeah, and there is an acceptance actually finally from the government that maybe the players shouldn't be able to have sports bet on their jerseys. Right, and not just on their jerseys, but on the jerseys that are then bought at the various sports stores, so that kids wear them to their own, games and around the house and down the street. Like, why are we making kids be the walking billboards of these industries that are harmful, are destructive, and frankly have too much political power and have just been able to get away with it? Yep. So let's strip it back.
This is another one of those things. Like, let's come back to the thing that we started at the start. Most people would agree with that. Yeah. Like, just like most people would agree it's a good idea to stop climate change getting worse, or most people would agree that they don't want to eat koala burgers and don't want, the supermarkets getting it's like stocking products that's come from bulldozing koala homes for beef. Like, most people get this, and then you look to governments and parliaments and you say, are you going to be taking action to do something? And now, in some instances, like, to give them the due, like, there's some instances, sometimes they do. and people power pushes them there. So we got some changes to, as you would be very well aware, because you were there, you got them through as well. Changes to our nature laws, right, that people have been pushing for a really long time. So we can take steps in the right direction.
Yeah, it's not everything, but it's a step forward.
And we, certainly we as ACF, are going to acknowledge that when governments do it. That's what we want. We want them to take action. So things can happen, but by and large, people are looking and going, oh, but you're doing all this terrible stuff as well in government, and you're just not addressing the problems.
So we've talked a lot about power, and there's all of these different structures. But if Woodside, massive gas corporation, can just pick up the phone to the Prime Minister and get what they want, or stop what they don't want, which is more often the case, actually, stopping things in their favour. What hope have we got and what hope do you take from your work that we can change that around?
The Woodside CEO's only got one vote, and people listening to this and all their friends have got tens of thousands, right? We've got the ability to go to the people who are making decisions on our behalf and say, if you keep acting in the interests of big corporations, we'll go somewhere else. And this has happened in Australia before. Back in the 1980s, people power, as we spoke about, shifted the whole course of an election, saved a river. This was for nature, right? And so right now, in 2026, we can do exactly the same thing. We're going to have to be a bit more sophisticated with how we organise, and the people who are trying to do harm to nature and climate and people a bit better well-resourced, and there's more of them now than there might have been before, but we still outnumber them. We still outnumber them. And
Gina's got all her money, but we've got the people.
That's right. And so in that context, I think the fact that we still see wins, people power wins day after day after day, even though the media doesn't often report them, it just gives me enormous hope. We've done it before and we can do it again, I guess, is the we need to be a bit clear-eyed and understand that we're starting, I guess, a couple of steps back from where we'd like to be, but that just means we've got to go faster, right? It doesn't mean, and so, yes, at times I feel like, wow, we're up against a lot, but the fact that we've won before shows that we can win again. Yeah.
Well, as someone who's kind of been through the washing machine of politics, Adam, you're sitting here sounding really hopeful. And I think if anyone can take from that, an inspiration, well, I hope they do, and I hope we can see nature and climate on the agenda, not just politically, but across the community. Because as you say, you can't just leave it to the politicians.
Yep.
Like, you've been a politician, it's one role. It's not the whole game.
Yep.